Kawhi Leonard, to me, is one of my favorite players. I've been watching Kawhi Leonard when he was drafted by the San Antonio Spurs. He won championships with the San Antonio Spurs. Then he went over there to Toronto and won a championship with Toronto. And he had to decide where he was going to go. Now, he wanted to go back to L.A., as we all know, where he went to school. He went to San Diego State. And he wanted to go back home. And he wanted to be closer to home with his mom and his family. And it was between the L.A. Lakers and the L.A. Clippers. He didn't want to go to the Lakers. And one of the main reasons why he didn't want to go to the Lakers was because of LeBron James. So it was the L.A. Clippers or somewhere else, maybe Golden State, because that's another California team. But the fact is, he decided to go to the Clippers. And a lot of people, when he decided to go to Clippers, were questioning, why would he go to an organization that always loses? When they had Doc Rivers and Chris Paul there and Lob City. It didn't work. It never worked. And we could go back in time for the Clippers organization. They were an absolute debacle. And you think about Kawhi Leonard, this guy was the best two-way player in basketball at the time when he decided to go to L.A. Now, he had knee problems, and before he signed the contract, there were questions on why the L.A. Clippers would give him an extension and give him a contract when they knew after bringing him to the organization he might need knee surgery. But nevertheless, adding a superstar player like Kawhi and the way the organization was now building through owner Steve Ballmer, a fairly new owner, one of the richest owners in professional sports, they needed a way to draw this man to the organization. And knowing that if they can set up some kind of flaw in the contract and create a company, a corporation called Aspiration, they can find a way to give Kawhi Leonard $28 million more, where he would accept going to an LA Clipper team that obviously was in a rebuilding stage and obviously was trying to find a way to draw more superstars to come and play there. Kawhi Leonard is a guy that I'm not saying had anything fully to do with this because we don't know the full story, but we all know Steve Ballmer comes from an organization, a very well-known organization, a computer organization called Microsoft. And Bill Gates, if anybody knows about Bill Gates and his back-end story, he's a very smart man, but he stole a lot of people's ideas. That's how he became rich. Now, just because you steal ideas and you bring it to the forefront does not mean you can't make billions of dollars off those deals. And that's what, obviously, Bill Gates did. But when you hear a story like this and you talk about the past of what the NBA has done to organizations, including, as we said, the Timberwolves, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and what they did to the GM and the owner and Kevin McHale, and I remember it very, very well because Kevin McHale was the one that was in the forefront of drafting Kevin Garnett. Do we remember Kevin Garnett? One of the greatest power forwards of all time. And also behind drafting, well, making the trade and then drafting Stephon Marbury, if you remember that. When you look at the fact of what the NBA did to Kevin McHale, ownership in Glenn Taylor over there in Minnesota at the time in 2000, you would honestly believe that if the NBA investigates this story and looks deeper into it, there has to be some kind of hammer being dropped on an organization like the LA Clippers, first of all, that is patent with money. This is an organization, it's the richest organization in professional basketball. Think about it. The Lakers just sold their organization for what? $12, $13 billion. You talk about the Clippers and you talk about Ballmer. Ballmer is a guy that's very smart. He understands business. He understands how to hide and deliver money to players and people in a business standpoint. Aspirations, I remember the patch that they were wearing on their jersey at the time this was going on. I remember when Fish told me we were going to get into this story. I remember it very, very well. I didn't even know what aspiration was. I know the Nike sign. I know the Jordan sign, which most NBA teams are wearing on their jerseys now. And now the NBA is allowing teams to use sponsorships to put on their jerseys, which we're going to see in the next 2 to 3 years. You're going to see a lot of different things on NBA jerseys. As a matter of fact, if you go to Europe and you see the European jerseys, that's all they do. All their sponsors are promoted on their jerseys. You obviously have to understand the way the NBA works. You have to understand how professional sports work. College football has agreed to bring in NIL deals, paying players to play college football. The NBA and the money that these guys are making, as I brought up in What's That Smell yesterday, there are players that are making tens of millions of dollars and never step on the basketball court once in a game. Just think about it. We had a coach, as I brought up yesterday, that was making $150,000 playing for the Lakers and riding the bench. And players were saying to that specific coach, Coach, how could you live on $150,000 when the average American don't even break $100,000 a year? Think about it. And now you look at these stories, and I'm sure this isn't the first time we've heard this. I'm sure this isn't the first or the last time we're going to hear an owner maneuver some kind of way to deliver more money to a player under the table and try to play like he knew nothing about it. Now, obviously, he has come out and agreed and pleaded guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud, okay? Just think about that. Wire fraud is a felony. And you also think that if it was me or you, and I'm talking about Speedy, you're not Jabba, because Jabba is Jabba Chamberlain. He's a multi-millionaire, so we all know who Jabba Chamberlain is. But if it was me or Speedy that does something like that, we're going to jail. We're going to jail for at least 5 to 10 years. At least. For 2 felony counts of that magnitude. Ohtani, going back to what we have heard and the stories behind the whole Ohtani debacle with the condos and the money that was delivered or disappeared, as his agent claims that it wasn't these 2 fellas' money divided out when they were trying to build these condominiums. I honestly believe that the NBA will brush this under the rug. I do, because the NBA knows that Steve Ballmer is a very important piece to the growth of the NBA and NBA business, sponsorships, advertisements. This is a guy that's a mastermind of understanding how to build businesses around his professional sports team. And I do believe that Steve Ballmer, with the money that he has behind him, as we see Money Talks and Bull You-Know-What walks, Steve Ballmer is a guy that understands how to figure out how to negotiate things and brush things in places that you will never talk about or find ever again. Now, this isn't David Stern. Now, if it was David Stern that was behind this situation, you know David Stern will drop the hammer on ownership. You know David Stern will absolutely press on the Clippers and do what he did in 2000 to the Timberwolves. I think that was his final 2 or 3 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because I know Garnett was just traded to the Celtics, so it was right around that time.
David Stern was still running the NBA organization. He gave Adam Silver the reins, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 2005 or 2006. It was right after Eli Manning was drafted, if I'm not mistaken. When David Stern walked away and gave the reins to Adam Silver has, and I'm not saying he's ruined the league. I'm not saying that. And I'm not saying that Adam Silver isn't a smart, intelligent man. Adam Silver has let the players control the league. He has let the players decide where and how the league should be run. As we all call it, the LJA on this show, the LeBron James Association. And this is a big league which has become international because of Michael Jordan and now LeBron James.